Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Tony Sirianni podcast. I am thrilled to have my friend Mike Purpura, the head of DA Davidson's wealth management unit, here with us today. Mike, welcome aboard.
Thank you. Happy to be here, Tony.
Good. So, 111 offices, almost 2,000 employees. You're not so off the map anymore.
We're not, and that's it's been hard for us to get into the spotlight and enjoy it, Tony. But perhaps a victim a little bit of our growth and our success, where the Davidson name is now out there for sure.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I'm glad for you. And look, as if I'm a $1 million producer trying to look for a place to come, and there's a lot of choices. You're hearing a lot on the independent side, right? So there's all that. And my contention has been, Mike, that people are firms are sort of moving to the middle. You have the wirehouses on this side, sort of quirky independents on this side. And the middle is filled with independent firms. It's filled with regional firms. It's filled with, old line brokerage firms, all with different models, but they all kind of share that same ethos of, the advisor being the top thing, the client, being the sort of, top line. And you guys have that. So the question is, they got to ask, why you? And I think when they look at independence, I'm going on for a long time here, but as a $1 million producer, you guys got real, pretty high payouts that are going to be, by the time you do the math. And I guess I end up with this: do advisors really understand the indie math? Oh, you're going to get a 90% payout. By the time you start adding it up, you're at or below DA Davidson.
Right. Well, maybe a couple things in there, Tony. For us, listen, the reason Davidson is different is because we've built something that's in the middle.
Yeah.
So people can have the feel and look of an independent broker dealer from a compensation and an entrepreneurial perspective, but do it in an employee environment where they have all the stuff, the products, the services, the technology, the internal subject matter expertise, so they can deliver a great advice experience, which is what we're all in the business to do. So we know we're just different. The employee ownership structure, the self-clearing nature of what we do. Those you just can't find those every day.
So let's talk a little bit about the employee ownership structure. I think that's critical. So the other thing I'm hearing, all the time, you hear equity, right? Equity is a big part of compensation plans, and you guys been doing that for a little bit.
Yeah, it's nice that everybody's determined that equity's a key component. For almost 90 years, we've been all employee owned. And we when the firm was started, we created an ESOP that allows for broad equity participation. I think that the difference is, not only are we a Johnny come lately to this notion of equity, but our intention in having associates and advisors build equity isn't an end game. Yeah. So with the private equity kind of roll up mentality that's out there today, those people are going there, at least in my opinion, under the belief that we're going to get some equity and then we're going to get sold again and we're going to get a double dip. Yeah. Right? The people who come to DA Davidson aren't looking to do that. We've been independent for almost 90 years. The people who've held our equity have been rewarded nicely, although past performance is no guarantee of future results. Right. But the people who come here want a piece of the rock, want to own the business, but get to do it in what we believe is a different and better format, Tony.
Well, the other word you hear, all the time, you hear equity, you hear people talking about enterprise value, like building their own business up. And your equity structure kind of answers both of those, because the value of their business is going to go up over time, hopefully, when they sit with you. And then, of course, the ESOP.
Right. Not only that, but I mean, if you think about it, financial advisors in our world always have the ability to monetize their business again. When you take some of these other paths, you're largely locked in. You've made the monetization decision, and you're banking, betting, hoping that there's going to continue to be demand for our world, and they're going to be able to sell it again. And if not, they're locked into that structure. Where at Davidson, you can monetize your book, you can build equity in a larger enterprise, you can build equity in your enterprise, and yet you still have the freedom to monetize in a different way, which obviously it's our goal to make sure they never want to do. but at
Right.
least you've got the option to, versus in a lot of these roll-ups, as you know, Tony, where they don't.
And you've got a balance sheet. So you can support these guys when they're, hey, we have we'd like to buy this book over here, or we want to do it. And the other thing, that's obvious, the struggles in the independent side, I've started a couple of these businesses. It's for some people, it's perfect. It works out great, but it's really hard. There's no training program in independent model. It's very hard to find anything with succession, right? And then capital is always constrained or comes with a lot of ties that we talked about. So, with you, I know you have young people in the business and you also have capital. So advisors go out and buy a new business. You'll help them get another business.
We do all the time. We're helping them acquire the business internally from another advisor, or talking to people every day about their ability to monetize, come to Davidson, and for one of our legacy advisors to capture those assets. So yeah, common conversation for us, Tony.
Yeah, yeah. So all that being said, where do you think the business is heading? We talked a little bit about what's going on now, obviously, right? With roll-ups and things like that. Where do you think it's drifting towards?
Yeah, so for us, we continue to think about advice, right? So the underlying infrastructure and ownership and some of the things you've talked about are on our mind, but we spend more time thinking about how do we arm our financial advisors with the right platform so they can deliver an exceptional client experience. Because while we love to grow through recruiting in new offices, that's fun and exciting. The better way to grow is empowering our existing FAs. And we're doing that through two things, Tony. One, through technology platform efficiency, and two, by expanding the advice offering. So for us, we want technology enabled FAs who are operating on the most efficient platform they have to deliver a great experience and grow. And that is just, we think about that every single day. And then Tony, listen, you and I have been around this business long enough to know that the more types of advice you can provide, the more valuable you are to a client. And in the last 12 months, we partnered with external people to allow our FAs to deliver advice on Medicare, which we don't get paid for. But again, you've got to be able to do. We've hired internal people to help us deliver better advice when it comes to lending. And even though we aren't owned by a bank, we have to be able to provide advice.
Yeah.
And that's been a big win for our financial advisors to have those conversations with clients and to talk about, even though we're not going to make the loan, here's how to do it. And that makes them more loyal to the firm. And we've spent time building out a staff internally to help business owners, again, with non-financial issues a lot of times, Tony, but how are they thinking about succession? How are they thinking about capital? So not
Okay.
just come to DA Davidson and sell your business, but business owners are facing these decisions, and we're building out a team to help them with that. So again, for us, advice, Tony.
And that gives advisors confidence, right? When they know they can lean back and then lean into something with a client, then they're not in a bad position. So that does bring up another thing that's, obviously really important in the industry today, AI. So, there's advisors ask me all the time, well, is AI going to take my job? And I'm like, well, yeah, it's going to take your job. If you don't, if it's going to do a lot of things better than you. However, it'll take your job if you ignore it and think nothing's going to happen. If you figure out how to incorporate it, you're going to do better, than you were before. So I mean, it's a real thing. I used it this morning to do a job description. I said, this is going to be a pain in the neck. I got to write. I went in, and 2 seconds later, I had a job description. So, what are you guys doing over there?
Yeah, on AI, it's every day. I mean, today there's
Every day.
headlines about companies cutting fees. Yeah, I mean, it's just extraordinary the changes that are happening. For Davidson, we believe in AI. We believe in it from both an efficiency perspective and a content creation perspective. We're walking, Tony. We're not racing
Right.
into it. We're trying to make sure that we do it right. We're starting with conversations with our key vendors and making sure we understand how they're going to incorporate it. And then we're exploring the content creation. So it's going to be fantastic for financial advisors. Those who embrace it and are enabled by it are going to be more efficient and deliver a better client experience. But at Davidson, our theory is take it slow. Let's see what our primary technology vendors do to leverage it,
Yeah.
and then do a little work internally on it.
I mean, it's changing every day. So, I'm, it'd be weird to make $100 million bet on this thing, internally, right? Before you know where it's going to go. But,
Right.
you see big teams doing, easy things, team letters to clients. That was like the worst job on the team. You do it every month, right? It was such a pain in the neck for usually the lowest person on the team had to write it up, and it was terrible. Now you can do it every week in about a minute and a half.
Right. Yeah, that content creation piece is the one again, we're trying to find the best solution, but there's no doubt that's low hanging fruit
Yeah.
for people. But
For sure.
I'm even more excited, Tony, about the notion that can we use automation, which is not as sexy as sort of the client facing EI,
Yeah.
to make just basic everyday operations more efficient when it comes to a lot of the processing. And we're digging into the processing every day, whether it's, can we process an estate quicker? Can we open an account quicker? Can we convert an account from brokerage to advisory? All those basic core functions. That's where I believe most client associates and FAs are going to practically see a pickup thanks to AI, Tony.
Yeah, and I think, the other thing we see with our, we have our 1,000 advisors to watch list that comes out. We always do a lot of questioning of those guys. Processes and procedures. The big successful teams have their arms around that.
Right.
They have figured it out, and they'll adapt AI and the newest technology towards it. And that's another reason to hire. I mean, no offense for guys like us, but young people really have their arms around this stuff. They're not intimidated. They have it. So, expanding teams is a big part of success for advisors. What are you guys doing in terms of that? And also, young people. It's a two-tiered question. One is expanding teams, and then getting next gen folks in the business a little bit has been a challenge.
Yeah, well, couldn't agree more with your point that teams need to incorporate not only youth and diversity, but different skills.
Yeah.
And the biggest different skill is obviously being tech savvy. So we think about it every day. We run training programs, we run apprentice programs, all to bring newer people into the business that have those skills. We've got a very generous program in terms of compensation that we will provide to allow these people to train and be part of a team for between 1 and 3 years.
Yeah.
Before then, a financial advisor can make a decision as to whether or not they want to share equity with that person or whether they want to keep them on as an employee, which is
Right.
again unique to our model that we give these financial advisors choices. Tony, the best teams are bringing on newer people who are experts at planning,
Yep.
do basic planning, and are tech savvy.
Yep.
And the FAs who are not bringing on junior partners are generally really good at operations, Tony. They're people that have consolidated 2 or 3 books. They leverage technology. They've got a very defined client service model, and
Yes.
they can run twice the assets of a different FA who doesn't sort of think with that operating mindset.
Yeah. These top advisors, the average person added 1.5 team members last year. I mean,
Right.
they're growing, they're moving. It's like a shark. You got to keep
Right.
moving, or else you're going to die. So, in terms of one thing I do want to talk about and get to, we got a little time, is the culture of giving at the firm, because that's one of my favorite things about what you guys do. But before we get there, the advisor marketplace, all this heat, we talked a little bit about it. What inning are we in? I want to knock you down. I'm saying we're like, 4 or 5 innings into this thing.
We might even be, it might even be less than that, Tony.
Mm.
When you think about roughly a pool of 100,000 advisors, I just think the pace of change is going to continue for a long time.
Yeah.
You're going to see more and more advisors move from the big, massive wirehouses to anything else other than the big, massive wirehouses.
Yeah.
I think we might be in the 3rd inning of what is a massive change. And it's going to be fueled by a lot of those next gen advisors who come into an existing structure and determine that that's not the structure for them. And maybe it was the structure for their predecessor. So I'm convinced that we're in the even earlier innings than fourth or fifth innings, and that firms like Davidson and some of our other boutique peers are going to be the most significant benefactors. We're not going to need an independent model.
No,
There's
no, and look,
opportunity.
you guys have embraced that. I'm not convinced that people are moving for the model, right? I mean, I think they're moving for the ethos. They're moving for, I want to be respected. I want, I want the client first. There's a list of a laundry list of things that they're moving for, and if that can be accomplished in a place that's got scale and stability and an office and a manager, oh, sure. Now, for some people, they may say, even with that, I want to just be on my own. Okay, great. But I think it's more this laundry list of things. And as firms are moving to the middle, I think it matters less the exact platform that you're on, especially at a place like yours. I don't see you guys suing everybody when they leave and all that kind of stuff.
No, we're fortunate that we don't suffer that much attrition, and when we do, we're professional and thoughtful and not vengeful with it. But we work very hard. Our regrettable attrition rates have been very low, knock on wood, because we're constantly working on the platform and communicating with people. That's not going to change, Tony.
No, and it's so funny because there are, for a lot of them, the regional firms, the successful regional firms, always all have low attrition, and you look at sort of some of the wires and stuff, it's like, geez, if you spent half the money you spend on lawyers with TROs and just made your place someplace that advisors don't want to leave, wouldn't that be money better spent, than having to constantly struggle like that?
Right. Well, I mean, the big issue, Tony, is as a public company,
Yeah.
constantly face the pressure of delivering returns, right? And you mean, just every month, every quarter, it's in your face. And if you're a private company, you've got the ability to sit down with your shareholders and lay out a long-term vision and say, be patient. We're going to make these investments. We're not going to listen to a consultant who helps drive efficiency or decisions that's going to hurt the operating culture to help with the next 2 quarters worth of earnings. And as much as being on the same page by having shared equity matters, the private ownership aspect and the long-term perspective, you don't know how beneficial it is until you've operated in that environment.
Absolutely. And the flip side of that is that, I've started a couple firms, so I know, economics and money coming in, it drives culture. It drives what you have to do. You have to make decisions based on, once you start doing that, you can get into trouble. When you start having to make decisions based on money versus being an employee-owned thing, everyone's got their oars in the water. It's just a lot better.
Right.
So I did want to talk about the culture of giving, which is my favorite part. Whenever you talk to somebody, DA Davidson, they're always, I mean, I don't think people understand how big a piece of the giving. Just talk a little bit about it, because it is a nice thing, and I think it speaks to the culture that you guys have built over there.
Right. So our core values are represented in the word bison, BISON, and the N stands for neighborly spirit, which maybe sounds a little quirky, Tony, but from the days the company were founded, we basically believe that if you do well for your associates, you do well for your clients, if you do well for your communities, then the economics will follow, right? If you simply do those things. And doing well for our communities is a big part of who we are. We give away at our annual meeting an award to the top person in terms of engagement outside the firm. It's the most coveted award.
That's the big award, right? That's like the NFL Man of the Year. That's the award everybody wants.
It's more important than being the top producer at the firm to be recognized with what we call the BLK award for 3 fallen employees. And all of our employees have employee matching. The firm gives away money. The managers are empowered with capital to give away money, and we recognize the award. It's just, we know that it's the right thing to do. We don't do it for business, but we know by doing it, not only do we feel good about it and feel good about our communities, but it results in more business as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to, I mean, it's common sense. Advisors know this intuitively. You invest in the community, you're part of the community. You and I know that advisors are they're important. You know,
Right.
when God forbid a client dies or something and you get that call, I mean, you're the most important guy in the world at that point, you know? So we're in a business and values where values can separate the good from the bad and from the people who need to do what they need. So I appreciate that about your firm. I want to end on that. That's a high note, I think. I want to end on a high note. But it's great having you on the show, Mark. And obviously, you know, we'll do it again. But congratulations on all the success.
Thank you, Tony. Thanks for everything you do for the industry, and
Sure.
wish you and yours nothing but the best.
Thanks, bud.